This is the How'd You Do It podcast, and I'm your host, Lyle Wilkes. I believe that people have more to offer and knowledge to share than they ever give themselves credit for. So with that, my goal is to deep dive into the success stories of business owners, entrepreneurs, and community icons so they can share the road they traveled and what they learned along the way. This is episode 8 of the How'd You Do It podcast. I just finished up with a friend of mine, Judson Vaughan with Alpha Insurance. We talked about life. We talked about, the sales and a lot of gold nuggets there as well. But I think what I enjoyed the most with Judson was that we talked about the importance of insurance and, being thankful that you have it if or when those times do happen. You can tell Judson cares and believes in what he does. And I just thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and I know you will too. Well, Judson, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I know this is your first time, right?
First time.
Yeah, might as well be my first. It's a new thing for me as well. So I was telling you earlier, I always get super nervous before I start. So,
yes.
So you're in insurance.
Yes.
Yes,
the wild world.
Yeah. How'd you get involved in that?
Well, few things. The first is probably my dad. So he was in insurance my entire life.
Was he with Alpha too?
He was not with Alpha.
Okay.
But growing up, I had a great relationship with my Alpha agent. He and his family had been very good friends of mine and were there. They were there for the good times and the bad. And I knew that's something that I wanted to do. I didn't know what role that was necessarily, because my degree is not in insurance.
What is your degree in?
Broadcast journalism.
Okay, so right out of high school, what was your dreams of what did you have planned out?
Well, I knew I wanted to talk. I knew I not necessarily wanted to be in sales, but I knew that I wanted to be able to use my best asset and my people skills. I would put up there high on that list.
Okay.
So I thought if I could be trained to talk behind the camera or in front of the camera, that would elevate me,
okay,
as opposed to someone who might be nervous in that situation. And there's still nerves to be had.
Yeah.
But they're relative. And whether or not, I might be nervous about the concept of what I'm talking about or whatever the topic is, but
yeah. It's funny you bring up the nerves because I get nervous every time. That's what I said before. Before a podcast or I've been athletic most of my life and competed in sports and things like that. But a coach told me one time, he's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "I'm nervous." And he said, "Well, you know what that means, right?" He said, "It means it's important to you.
That's
so
right.
Hold on to that." I always every chance I get to tell that story, I was because it does. If you're nervous before something, it means you're excited and it means something to you.
And it doesn't mean bad.
Exactly. It shouldn't be a negative connotation.
Absolutely.
Only positive. Didn't mean to interrupt, but go
No,
ahead.
No, you're good. But I had a sales job out of college.
Yeah.
And
what college did you go to, by the way?
I went to Troy.
Oh, that's where my wife went.
Yes, go Trojans. I try to tell folks that as many times as we can. So we'll put that little plug in there for you.
Okay. Yeah.
Met my wife there, and so it's a very special place to me.
Okay.
So I had a couple of sales jobs out of college, and they were just jobs.
What kind of sales jobs?
I sold diabetic shoes right out of college.
How did you manage that?
I have no idea.
Was it door-to-door sales?
Thank God, no.
No.
It was, well, in a matter of speaking, it was door-to-door in the nursing home. So I'd go from one hall to the next.
Some college kid trying, yeah.
I was a fish out of water.
Yeah.
I sold... up to that point in my life, the best sales job I had ever done was selling magazines my junior year in high school to raise money for the prom.
Yeah.
And so I was not in my element, mainly because I was new. And there's so many different facets of a sales job, especially in a state like Alabama, that, the leadership and different industry, there's, most of the time the folks that own all these things, we could put them in a room much smaller than people think.
Yes.
Because the older I get, I have learned it's about who you know. In a sales job, especially something in pharmaceutical sales or medical supply sales, everyone's tied to each other in a different way. And so I think the struggle for me at that point was really understanding that. And although I thought I had the knowledge and the skill set, the on the job training is, worth more than, worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, yeah. You can read a book about how to ride a bike, but until you get on it, nothing. You think you know how to, but you don't.
No, you don't. And then by the time you get used to riding that bike, guess what? They're going to come out with a different kind of bike.
Yeah, you got to learn that one too.
You got to learn that one too.
Yeah.
So
sales. So diabetic shoes.
Diabetic shoes, and then I worked customer service for a pharmacy processing company after that, and it was more of a trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I put in a lot of applications, did not get very many interviews.
Yeah.
Didn't get any actually. And then I started talking to my dad more and more about insurance. And
before we go there, what was your experience like on the customer service side? Did you like it?
I did not.
So, was your role like they called with problems?
I handled, yes.
And what was the company? What'd they do?
So we worked with workers' comp clients, folks that had been hurt on the job. Yeah. And we were kind of the behind the scenes of working with your adjuster and the doctor and the pharmacy to make sure that if Lyle got hurt on a work call, that he was getting the proper medication and seeing the doctor. So anytime you're talking about health insurance and medication and things like that, folks are very, very particular.
Yeah.
And granted, I had no authority to do really anything other than what my job title entailed. And at that time, it was just customer service. So there were no big problems that I could solve. I was just the first line of defense and the first set of ears.
First one to get yelled at. Yeah.
First one to get yelled at. And but I guess I didn't get yelled at enough because I decided to sell insurance.
Yeah.
So
that's why I wanted to ask about that, because I built my real estate business off of cold calling. And so the first time
bless your heart.
I liked it, and because what I realized is that it was a conversation game.
That's right.
Number of conversations you have in a day depends on how much, transactions you have, how many relationships you make, all of that good stuff. And, to me, it was, I also realized that if I could be the one to solve the problem and turn that conversation around, that was so when someone started yelling at me, I almost viewed it as an opportunity. I was like, if I can turn this around and I can change your opinion or your mindset on something, I all of a sudden become from a zero to a hero like that.
Absolutely, you do.
So
because you become the expert in the room to their problem.
Exactly.
But you don't get there if you don't listen to them.
That's it. Most of sales is just listening. So anyway,
absolutely.
On to insurance, you started talking to your dad.
Yeah, started talking to my dad. He said, "Son, what are you going to do with a broadcast journalism degree?" And I was like, "Well, I don't 100% know."
Yeah.
I applied with internships with the Atlanta Falcons to work in their PR department because I had, at some point in time in my life, I had written a paper about I would love to do to work in PR for a professional franchise. I've always been intrigued by sports. I was never the best athlete growing up, but I know a lot about it, and I've done my research, and I would love to be. I used to want to be, the face of something, be able to, go out there and on a bad day, spin something, if you will, not to make the company look as bad. That's the journalism in me, I guess.
Yeah.
But that degree in broadcast journalism has a contract with public relations because Troy didn't offer just a straight PR major. And so contract's 3 more hours than a minor. Okay. So sometimes I would just say I have a double major because it's
much easier.
It is much easier. It is much easier. And I do enjoy rounding when it makes us look a little bit better.
Yeah.
And rounding up instead of rounding down.
Exactly. Yeah.
So but yeah, so I started interviewing with Alpha, and it took me about 6 months.
To actually land a job with
Alpha? Land a job with Alpha.
Why was the hiring process so extensive?
One great thing about Alpha is that Well, we're in all 67 counties. And so every county has representation from not only claims folks, but agents and CSRs. But because of that, Alpha does a great job at maintaining employees. So these jobs aren't necessarily ones that are always available. And so I actually thought that I was interviewing for a job the spot in Wetumpka for the longest time. And lo and behold, I wound up on Perry Hill Road for the first year and a half. And with a couple of agents that had been there for decades. And so they've had very established clientele. The CSRs that were in that office had been there for decades as well. And so it was the same faces that they interacted with every day. And here I come in, the new kid, at 25.
Yeah.
And green as a gourd because I just didn't, you're kind of like drinking from a fire hydrant.
Oh, yeah.
Because you want to get in there and you want to do all these things. And then you start, open up your computer and you're like, where do I go?
Yeah. It's like I need to learn all of this stuff, but I don't even know where to begin to start applying it. Yeah.
And so, but thankfully, Alpha does not throw you to the wolves. And I was encouraged to talk to numerous different people in the company, not just in the role that I was in.
Yeah.
And so I took advantage of educating myself on the company. And the more you learn about Alpha, the more you love about Alpha. And that's been my experience.
Yeah. So when did you choose Alpha to try to sell insurance with because of your relationship of your,
So I'm from a small town.
Yeah.
I went to a small college. Naturally, I don't want to just go be a number. I've always wanted there to be something more to me than just another number. I don't have a name that everybody else has.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I didn't pick that, and it's been slaughtered for 36 years now.
Yeah.
But Judson is, it's 2 syllables. I've never really understood that. But nonetheless, I did some research on companies in Alabama because as long as my family's here, I'm not taking my ball and going somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so I started doing research, and the things that appeal to me are being more than just a number and being able to have hands-on impacts on lives. Yeah. And whatever I've always done, I consider myself a fixer.
Yeah.
Because there are, insurance touches so many different parts of your life. And only a few of those are transactions, if you say.
Yeah.
And so with anything that you do, like whatever your main thing to sell or to market, you do that, but that's only a portion of your time.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I quickly realized that, once you start talking about insuring people's most prized worldly possessions, they trust you.
Yeah.
And when someone trusts you, they bear their problems with you.
Yeah. It's a lot of responsibility.
It's a ton of responsibility.
Because even in my world of real estate, one of the things that I remind myself and also the agents within the company is that we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars of other people's money.
Every day.
I mean, that's a ton of equity we're messing
Every
with.
day.
So we have to be excellent at what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're trusting you in that moment to be the expert.
Yes. Yeah.
And there was an agent that retired from Alpha after decades of phenomenal service that told me, no one goes to the doctor to go see the nurse.
Yeah.
And so whenever you have a client, and you'll hear me say this, I don't have customers, I have clients, because I don't think I provide just one service.
Yeah.
And so once you're a client of mine, I try to make sure that you can navigate as many problems in your life with my help as possibly or as needed, because if I don't have the answer, I have a phone full of folks that do.
Yeah.
And so, but when you gain someone's trust professionally and personally, it's a big responsibility. I know that in my job and in my role, I have the ability to to insure houses up to, $1.2, $1.5 million,
Yeah.
with underwriting assistance,
Yeah.
but, and bending them hit all our boxes. But, I have my role comes with a lot of responsibility and a whole lot of, a whole lot of leeway.
Yeah.
And, but so I try to take that as serious as I can. Because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I'm looking out for the client's best interest, but also the company's.
Yeah.
And so there's a fine line that you have to walk. But I think that's what makes the folks successful.
Yeah. Well, you got to make it make sense for everybody involved.
Absolutely,
right? Like
you do.
if you're a company that's like, we insure you to the hilt, and you're dealing with a client that wants a minimum as possible,
Absolutely.
it's not a good fit. And
No.
trying to force that, nobody wins.
Right.
You
And
know?
if we're arguing, if you're, this is going on 11 years for me, and there are a ton of different things that can happen with insurance. My little tagline these days is insurance is easy with Judson, and I believe that's true because there's a whole lot of things that come up with insurance that if you don't deal with it every day, it's going to seem like French to you if you don't know French.
Yeah.
And so my goal is to try to bridge that gap and to be the knowledge that you need. And it's wild. It's a fun career. Every day folks ask all the time, how do you structure yourself? I'm like, well, I'll let you know when I get there and what that first phone call says.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because that first phone call can send you across county, or it could send you, it can send you anywhere.
Yeah.
And
so what exactly is like? So you people come to you for insurance, and what all do you insure? Like everything?
So that is a misconception. People think if you sell insurance, you sell everything.
Yeah.
And now, while we do have a whole lot of tools in our tool belt, if there's something that doesn't fit inside of our box, thankfully I've made friends outside of my office, and so I've got a pretty good network to be able to refer stuff to for things that don't fit. But home and auto and life are probably the three biggest things that you think when you think of a local insurance agent. We do a lot of commercial business, a lot of business owner policies. We do have Alpha clients have access to Alpha Health, which is a separate entity within the Alabama Farmers Federation that covers Alpha insurance. And so we've got very skilled people that will guide you through healthcare.gov. And so, but mainly what I see come across my desk are home, auto, life, and commercial.
Okay.
So
So with like the homeowner's policy and insurance and all of that,
Right.
like, what are some of the things that you see that like for example, like years ago I had a rental house that hot water heater busted, flooded, tore it up, and it's like because I didn't have flood insurance, I wasn't covered. Like all of those different things. So where like some of the, and that's always stuck with me because it happened to me. I'm
Right.
like, good Lord, the house flooded, I guess technically, but is that really under flood insurance?
Well,
So yeah. And my question, I guess, is that how do you help clients make sure that they don't find themselves in a similar situation like that?
Well, one thing is making sure they understand what they're getting.
Yeah.
Folks just think that every policy is the same.
Yeah.
And while that may be partially true, every homeowner's policy that I look at is specifically designed for the client that's purchasing it and that property. And so trying to make sure that they understand what their deductibles mean, trying to make sure that they understand what their coverages are, because there's so many times that if you don't go over things that are not covered,
Yeah.
In the time of a loss, it's an awful time to just find that out.
Yes.
Because I do not catch folks on their best days.
No. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so-
I'm sure you either, they call you to, in case something happens,
That's
you're there,
right.
or they call you when something happens.
And
So,
nobody likes to pay insurance until you need it, and then it is, it's on the top of your list.
yeah.
So because no one buys an insurance policy to go put on the mantle.
No,
You don't
yeah.
get to invest X amount of money into a life insurance policy that's financially smart, but
Yeah, so-
your
okay.
kids aren't going to get that right
Yeah.
now.
Life insurance. I think I understand it, but most of the time during conversations with like you and other people, I
Right.
realize I don't. So give me a quick rundown on life insurance.
Okay, so life insurance is probably the best money and the most bang for your buck of anything that anybody will ever even talk about selling you. It is an intangible product, so my job is to paint a picture for you. So let's paint this picture. So your two main types of life insurance are your whole life policies that are designed to take you to at least 100 or whatever age you say this is how long I want it to run, or you have a term life policy that takes you. And term policies run anywhere from 10 to 30 years on a level rate. So once you're locked in, that rate is not going higher
Oh, okay.
or lower on a term policy. We we offer term policies, whole life policies, and then universal life policies that are really kind of a meet in the middle.
Yeah.
They work out well for clients that say, okay, I want, the average age of folks in my family live to 85. So I want to make sure that I've got enough life insurance to last till 85. Well, great and wonderful, because we can do that. We can fund something to take you to whatever age you are looking for. And that's something that you don't get with just, a 1-800 number.
Yeah.
And so explaining the differences to people is key, because sometimes we take advantage of the fact that I do this every day. So I might use terminology that might not make any sense. So I need to make it as easy to understand as I can.
So in a nutshell, what does life insurance actually do?
Life insurance covers your most prized worldly possessions. Okay, because it was taught to me this way a long time ago in new agent school, that you protect the golden goose that lays the golden egg.
Yeah.
You're going to do whatever. If you have a prize goose that lays that golden egg, you're going to do everything you can to protect that goose. Okay?
Yeah.
And so this is what that does. We make sure that in the time of a loss, and a very tragic one, the most tragic one that we come across in the insurance world, we make sure that everything else in life doesn't have to stop.
Got it.
Although your time on this earth has come to an end, my job is to make sure that all of those finances that you're responsible for do not become a burden.
Got it.
Because there are plenty of things to worry about after a loss. After we buried my dad almost 5 years ago, exactly to this date, there are so many things that come up after a loss. And the last one that you want to have to worry about is how you are going to pay for everything.
Yeah.
And so when you paint that picture to folks and you say, look, you need, we can sit down and do a needs analysis. We can sit down and do whatever to calculate that. But, I come across a lot of clients that either have a financial advisor, or they're at the point in their life where they've determined that this amount of money should take care of them.
Yeah.
Well, and then another thing we do is make sure if you say, look, I can allot $200 to life insurance every month. That's as much as I can. Well, wonderful. Let's figure out how much we can get you for that much. And we can do that. And sometimes that's the bigger thing, is convincing people or showing them that it's not, and it's not convincing because it's the truth. You don't have to just spend buku-doodles of money
Yeah.
if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because most people have some life insurance through their employer. That's always great and wonderful to get, because you're getting a group rate, because you're not the only person that's on that, that's getting that price. But having something that you control outside of work to make sure that, you might have 20 jobs in this life. Well, there might be a gap in coverage there for at least a day sometimes between those jobs, because unless you pay for it, you don't get to normally take that policy with you from job to job. So you don't want to ever be in a situation where there is a lapse in your life insurance. And so controlling something outside of work through me specifically, would make sure of that.
Yeah, I got
So,
you. So basically what you're doing with the life insurance is that if anything, me and my situation, like if anything ever happens, my expenses, my overhead, my life that I have right now is covered.
they used to say 7 times your annual income was
Yeah.
statistically smart, and that's what the actuaries have come up with. And thank God I don't have to come up with those numbers. But I've got a lot of friends that are actuaries at Alpha, and boy, are they smart.
Yeah.
And
It takes a special kind of person just to sit in the room all day and crunch numbers.
I have no idea how they do it.
Yeah.
I was when I went to college, I started as a marketing major.
Yeah.
And took my first macroeconomics class and quickly realized that this was not for me. So
Yeah. Yeah. So life insurance, then auto. We haven't talked about that. What are some common like mistakes you see on policy? Because I'm sure you get like people transferring coverage to
yes.
you.
Well, the biggest misconception is quote full coverage, because there is no such thing. You cannot call and say I want full coverage and be assured that everything you want is on that policy, because the bank is just concerned that you've got liability. Of course, the state requires you to have liability, and then they want comp and collision. So if your car is damaged, their loan is protected by you having insurance.
Yeah.
So you can have just comp and collision, or you could have comp and collision and roadside service, or comp and collision and rental car coverage, or a combination of the both.
Yeah.
So that phrase full coverage has been used for so many years, and the thing is that most people in insurance know where you're going with that. But if we don't break that down for you, there's no guarantee.
Well, yeah, because I'm sure you talk to 3 or 4 different insurance agents. Full coverage means 3 or 4 different things.
Correct. And the same amount, and we see this thing, folks think that, oh, well, I used to pay, 5 years ago, I paid this amount. Well, nothing is the same as it was 5 years ago.
Nothing.
And so,
That truck you're driving is now 100,000
yes,
versus 50.
Yes. But people think that, that insurance is one of those things that has to stay low. And the problem is that as long as the cost of everything that we use on an everyday basis at our house or in our car, as long as those rates keep going up, insurance has to follow.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean that you have to break the bank paying for it, but more than anything, and it's not just with insurance, but it's with real estate, you get what you pay for.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because like a lot of, I've had a couple clients over the years like, well, I want the whole marketing deal. Like, well, what have you been told is the whole marketing deal?
Absolutely.
I guess there's a lot of, there's
the whole deal's really relative.
Yeah, exactly.
Really relative.
Exactly. And similar to you, like my job is to really explain and inform and educate on what exactly it is.
Absolutely. Because you think you might want one thing, but after I actually tell you what that is, you might say, absolutely not.
Yeah. Well, if someone, it's like they tell me, I've got to be in Austin, Texas in 3 months because of a job. And it's like, okay.
I've never been to Austin.
Oh, it's a great place.
I'd love to visit.
Yeah, yeah. But they tell me they need to be here by a certain time. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And then they tell me they want to list it higher than market price. I'm like, those two things collide. That doesn't align. Like, if you want to get to Texas in 9 months, I'd be more than happy to list it at that price, But they just don't know what they don't know, And so our job's to inform.
And price match is a dangerous term that people say, that I hear a lot. They say, well, do y'all do a price match? I said, no, ma'am, I'm doing you a favor because I'm going through and breaking this down and not going off of exactly what they did.
Oh, yeah.
Because if they made a mistake, I don't want to duplicate that.
Yeah.
So it's, every day's different.
Yeah, yeah.
And every client's different is the thing.
It is, yeah.
Because their needs change, and sometimes they change on a daily basis.
They do. And that's why you ask questions, figure out where they're at, what their
Absolutely.
situation is, where they're going, how they want to get there, what they want it to look like, what they want it to feel like, all the different things. And only by asking questions can you figure out what it is they want. Then you actually offer them something. If you start off offering them something, then you get the agents that just says, yeah, full coverage. This is what it is.
Right.
It looks like totally different things.
Absolutely.
So you've been in insurance how long?
This August is 11 years.
So what's the wildest story you can tell me with insurance? I know you got to have some.
Yes. I had let's see which ones I can tell. I had a client whose house burned down about a year ago.
Yeah.
And they lost their animal inside, and they wanted to know how much we were going to pay for a pet. And I'd never been asked that before. And the answer is we don't, because it's your homeowner's policy does not cover, animals.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there are insurance companies out there that will put an insurance policy on a pet.
I was about to say, is that an option?
It is. It exists.
Okay.
Don't ask me who it is off the top of my head. Pet
Yeah.
Secure, maybe. Don't take that.
Yeah.
but it is not a policy that I've ever written.
Okay.
And so I was trying my best I even got her to repeat it twice on the phone. I,
Speak slower
I
for
was like,
me.
ma'am, I was like, you're asking about your dog?
Yeah.
And I felt terrible
Yeah.
because, people, most of the time, if they're asking about a claim, they just want me to fix everything for them. And that's great and wonderful. And I love being able to be hands on.
Yeah.
There's some things outside of my scope. Once a claim is filed, it goes to our claims office. And our adjusters and the claim CSRs, they do a really good job of taking care of folks. And, I try to keep tabs.
Yeah.
But it just it threw me for a loop because I was like, I've never had anybody that's asked this. And then it made me start thinking, could we, do you put $100 per puppy? Do you put $50 per cats?
How do
Because
you put
dogs are
yeah.
better than cats. That's
Yeah.
a guarantee. And they should be worth more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just one of those things that people just assume, or no one's ever specified it. And maybe it's my fault that I did not go over that pets are not covered.
Yeah. That is interesting, though.
We will cover a bite, though.
Like a bicycle?
No, like a bite.
Oh, like a bite. Oh.
Yes,
Yeah.
preferably not if you have bitten someone before.
Yeah.
But we don't want those repeat offenders.
I gotcha. So what are some of the things that Alpha's involved in that are out? I mean, from what I understand, they're involved in the community quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Yeah. So what are some of those things?
Well, one of the things, and it's one of the things that I love most about Alpha, is the presence that we seem to have, not just in the community around the river region, because the headquarters is on the Southern Boulevard. It's in every county, and it's also in Georgia and Mississippi. And so we are very involved in the High School Athletic Association. You're going to see the basketball state championships will be held. They're being held soon. They're going on right now, I believe. But you're going to see a large presence from Alpha in a bunch of marketing different ways. We do there's a big Christmas tree in the lobby at the home office that on the boulevard, and every Christmas there are. It's amazing to see how many home office employees grab the different tags for the gifts. And I know that you do the one with Guild, I think. The toy drive?
Yeah, I support Gil with the toy drive. We also, we call it First Call Gives Back, but like every year we grab a couple families.
I love that.
The Eclectic branch does like Elmore County families. Montgomery branch does Montgomery County families. And so that was kind of the idea of First Call Gives Back was we wanted to impact those directly that support us in those communities, so.
It's so important. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was very, very proud of my organization for helping out at the at the warming center in Montgomery.
Oh, yeah. Give it a little, yeah.
We were able to donate numerous supplies, as well as our B&I group that you're in,
Yes.
the Business Alliance of the River Region. Ashley Williams and Pest Pro were so gracious to allow us to use one of their storage rooms to store supplies that we had specifically donated for the warming center. And I got to take a tour of it this past Friday before temperatures dropped and it was opened back up. But they do a great job with it. They are always in need of volunteers.
Yeah.
But it was very impressive to see the use of the facilities. The older I get, the more organization is key, and it seemed like it was very well organized. But there's always people that need something, and sometimes our problems normally pale in comparison when you take a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you just sit.
Our bad days having a flat tire, someone else's bad days not being able to get to their job, or not, being cold at night.
Everything
right?
is relative.
It's all relative.
Everything is relative. And, the more money you make, the more you spend.
Yeah.
The higher you rise in an organization, the more stress is put on your shoulders, the more responsibility is given to you.
Yeah.
But success breeds success.
Yeah.
And, that's one thing that I love about our group is that it's a room full of folks with the same mission at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think so.
They want to be successful. Now, granted, everyone has a different why.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that my why is their names are Katie, Carter, and Lucy.
Yeah.
And Penny. Can't forget about Penny. She just turned 13. So she'd be very angry if I forgot about her. But that's my why.
Yeah.
But everyone has a different why. But as long as
Yeah.
you got one, that's what matters.
I think because we're talking about like the BNI group, I think that we all have different whys and we want to be successful, but we all agree on how to get there.
That's right.
Like which is givers gain, truly helping people.
And the structure makes us listen to one another.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you're given, we talk about this every single week, you're given 60 seconds and then you're given 10 minutes if you have the presentation that week.
Yeah.
And so you're given prime time for you to sit there and say, look, this week this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And we do a really good job of making that happen.
Yeah.
And it's not just for one person. We've, out of the couple of dozen of us, we passed like $1.1 million in the past year.
Something like that. Yeah.
And, what's impressive about it is that it's in all sorts of different ways. It's not just, not just selling houses or insuring that same house.
Yeah.
It seems like we can honestly be a one-stop shop.
Getting close.
Very close.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's great to see.
I want to plug the guy that stopped by last week
Pane in the Glass.
Pane in the Glass. He has the best lines.
I love
the
it.
best catchphrases.
I love it.
Yeah. What was it?
Your pain
is our pleasure. Yes, that one. Yeah, I was like, that's brilliant.
We were talking tattoos when he first sat down because I was telling him that I've got my dad's handwriting on my arm, and he has a thumbprint tattoo, which I've never seen.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But folks that like tattoos normally like to compare them.
Oh, yeah. One of my best friends, he's in Huntsville, and he's a tattoo artist, and he's covered and stuff like that. But
it's wild.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I went through a stage where I got a few too many in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I had to get out of that because I was afraid. And my dad used to joke. He was like, son, just get a Sharpie.
Yeah.
Just get a Sharpie and go to town.
Yeah, I've got like the one I wanted. I've got one, and it's basically my entire back. Like it's my last name, so I'm that guy at the beach. He's like, "Oh, you grew up in the '90s, didn't you?"
That's exactly right.
Yeah. But I will say I wanted it since I was like 10 or 11 or 12.
To each his own.
As soon as I turned 18, went and got it. Because I remember the guy. He looked at me. He's like, "You sure?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." He's like, "This is your only one?" I was like, "Yeah." Like
my dad made me go ask. So the first one I got was an old fraternity tattoo on my ankle, and so my dad made me go talk to someone that had one that was now a professional.
Oh, okay.
And so to ask him if it ever interfered with him getting a job, and I was like, "Dad, I don't think I'm going to be showing off my ankles at very many corporate events."
Yeah.
And but anyways, the guy told me it never hindered him from anything. He was like, "Look, my socks cover it, so it's not like." So
my buddy, he's got a real good sense of humor about things, and he showed up one day, and he got his hands and like some of his knuckles. Like he's a tattoo artist, so I mean he's got them everywhere. And I was like, "Why'd you get those?" He said, "I just wanted to make sure that tattooing was my only career option." I thought it was hilarious.
Tie your hands, baby.
That's it. And that's actually funny. I talked about that every Monday. We get together on a Zoom call, and I call it the Monday morning huddle, talk about things, event coming in there. And one of the things I talked about this morning was allowing yourself to succeed. And so kind of full circle with that, actually, because like one of the things we do is like we still hold on, to something we don't fully commit, right? We don't burn the ships, right? To where we can go other ways. And I thought it was funny for him. And like that was, since he said that, it's probably been like a year and a half, 2 years ago. But now he's getting desk spots in like Texas and Tennessee. Like he's crushing it. He's doing phenomenal. That's what he's doing. But he burnt the ships. So, yeah. Something to think about. Yeah.
My wife will tell you that I went through this spell in the month of December where if I got mad, I wanted to burn everything down. So I appreciate the I appreciate the analogy.
Yeah, I got you.
I'm not burning anything these days.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you probably deal enough of that on a day-to-day basis.
I do. And thinking about a house on fire keeps me up at night. So I try to limit those fires.
What do you think has been like one of the things that have led to your success, or one of the things that you figured out in insurance that's, like this is what got me here? So
make your word mean something.
What do you mean by that?
I was told a long time ago that all a man has in this world is his handshake and his word. And so I try my best to make sure that if a client is in in my office or if they're over the phone, that they understand as much as I can, that they understand as much as I can educate them on. Because if you know more about it on the front end, you're much less likely to have an issue on the backside.
Yeah.
And so remembering that just because someone is buying their third house and they're getting insurance on it, it does not mean that they understand everything that's in this policy. They might just be saying, you know what, I'll just take whatever I had last time. Well, if, last time and this time is not the same thing.
Yeah.
And you're going to be upset if I don't specifically look at this as as a new entity or as a new property. And so education is so important. But I've tried to continuously educate myself on things that are going on at Alpha, but also in the insurance world. Because knowing what your competition is up to is key to success.
Yeah.
And not necessarily trying to one-up them or anything, but I'm a proactive person, not a reactive person.
Yeah.
And so I try to keep myself surrounded by those same people. So
Yeah, I agree with you on the aspect of like the more you do on the front end, the better, right? And also each situation is different because like similar to me, is it like when I go to a listing appointment that somebody wants to sell their house, like it happens more times than not because it takes me about an hour and a half to get through everything, you know, and because that's from start to finish, what to expect, how the process and all of that. And normally at the end, it's a common thing that I hear is like, no one's ever told me all of this, and I've sold 3 or 4 houses. I was like, that's why I'm here, is because I want you to understand and make sure you know what you're signing up for, And what I've found by doing that is like people don't want the cheapest product, they want the most value.
Absolutely.
And so by literally when just explaining what you do, how you do it, and why you do it, they're like, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Well, quality's always cost more.
Yeah.
And that's not something that's new in I know prices in 2024 are different than they've ever been, but quality has always cost more. That's not anything new.
Yeah.
And so most people want the best thing that their money can buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they want the most bang for their buck. And so
bang for the buck's the thing. Like, so one of the way it was taught to me was that like if you have 3 water bottles, right, and like you have one water bottle that's $1, one that's $4, and one that's $10.
Okay.
Like, for example, which one would you buy?
probably the cheaper one.
The cheaper one, the dollar one, right?
Because it does the same.
It does the same, right? So
in my mind, it does
exactly.
the same.
It's value, right? And so for me, I'm the exact opposite. I would buy the $10 one. So like when I go and I've got the sniffles.
No, I probably would.
Yeah, but I always buy like
I do like nice stuff the older I get.
You know what
I appreciate quality.
So I buy the one with the brand on it, like the logo, because it makes me feel better, right? Because I feel like I'm getting more value.
I get that.
So that's 10% of the population on either side. So it makes up a total of 20. But most people buy the middle price product, because they feel like that's the best bang for their buck.
It's true.
Yeah. So, most people like in industries and things like that, they think that advertising being the cheapest will get them further. And reality is that's not what the general population wants.
Like I don't ever want my name to be attached to anything that says discount.
No.
Yeah. I don't sell clearance item insurance.
Yeah.
But you don't want clearance item insurance.
Well, there's always a population of people that want that.
Mm-hmm.
Always, always, always. They want the cheapest product no matter what it is they're doing. It doesn't
right.
matter, right? But for the most part, people want what they believe is the best value for them. And that's normally that middle to higher road. So,
and I think one thing that I have tried to focus on, and 10 years ago, I tried to focus on price.
Yeah.
And, talk about, I can save you, if I'm calling loud, regardless if I'm giving you more coverages or whatever, I was just literally leaning and leading with numbers.
Yeah.
And then I guess at one point in time, I just realized, look, I'm going to stop selling off of just price and just sell on the product.
Yeah.
And then while I'm explaining that product, make you realize that no matter what price I'm about to drop on the table to you, you got to have it.
Yeah.
Because you know that this product is worth the paper that it's printed on.
Exactly.
Or paperless these days.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, like they're calling around trying to find what they feel like is the best deal. And if they were just going after price, they would just say, what would it cost to get coverage on my house? Not what does it include? They're giving you the opportunity to tell me where your value's at. That's what they're really asking. Even though they're saying they want the cheapest, they don't want the cheapest. They want the best product.
They
period.
do.
Yeah.
They do. And then whenever something happens with a claim, they might want that cheapest premium on the front side, but they want that 5-star service.
Yeah.
And thankfully we give them that.
Yeah.
And so, but it's, every client's different. And you have some that will want to come to your office once a week to discuss the same thing. And that's great.
Yeah.
But that's one part that I love about this
Yeah.
is that I get to interact with all sorts of different people.
Yeah.
And everybody from different walks of life.
Yeah.
And so it's expanded my, I guess, it's just expanded my knowledge. It's expanded everything.
Yeah.
Because when you go into someone's home and then, you sit at their table and then for that moment, you're not only a guest in their house, but,
Yeah.
you're intertwined with their traditions,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is neat, like it with.
And not everybody has that option. And we
No.
have that opportunity.
No, that's what I was about to say. It's like it's such an opportunity, and we're in this. It's a blessing, right?
Yeah.
It really is, though. When you think about
Hashtag
it,
blessing.
yeah, hashtag blessing. But it is I'm grateful to know that I played just a small part, and like how'd you end up picking here? Oh, well, Lyle showed me this house, and he told me I had to come see it. It's like and he was great to work. Like if you can get that, that's what kind of makes it worth it.
The guy that you had sent me a couple of weeks ago that we wrote this morning, he said, he made the comment about, he said, I've really enjoyed working with Lyle, and he was just going on and on and on. But he was saying that you were saying kind things about me too. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I really appreciated is that he said that we were both so personable to work with.
Yeah.
And that means a lot because if you're personable and you can gain that client's trust, you become worth a whole lot more than whatever that monthly transaction is.
Yep. You make it about them. You
Absolutely.
keep it about them. And if you do that, if you truly serve others, you're always going to come out good.
Every time.
Yeah. We could end the podcast right there,
Boom.
Yeah.
Drop the mic.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't want to touch it.
Yeah, no kidding. But no, it's been a cool ride. I haven't been selling real estate as long as you've been selling insurance, but I've been in the sales field for a while, and like it's neat to kind of. I'm finally at the point probably in my career where I'm seeing those like, now family members are not just from the family members but friends, and now like I'm in offices like or in that business environment like I'm, what I'm saying, and it's neat, And it's also going back to the responsibility of it, right? Like I have to continue to perform. I have to continue.
You do.
Yeah.
And if you don't continue to educate yourself when the rest of the population is continuing to educate themselves, you're going to get left behind.
Exactly. I'm a big believer in being selfish, and what I mean by that is like putting yourself first. Like it's if you.
I'm trying to do a better job of
Yeah.
taking like me time.
Yeah.
And time to focus on me.
Yeah. If I want to be the best husband I can possibly be, I have to work on myself the hardest. I have to come number one.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah. If I want to be the best, broker out there, I have to work on me. I have to be intentional about me,
I love the word intentional.
Yeah. Intentional is a big one. Yeah. Because if you're intentional about working on you, it's not being selfish. You're trying to make yourself better to where you can be there for the other person. It's easier. It's easier to put in like money terms, right? Like if you're broke and someone needs a hand or, needs help, you can't help them. So better to be rich to where you do have the opportunity to help people. That only makes sense. And so that's the same way with your mind, body, spirit, it's all important things. So, yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. So back to insurance, man. I got off on a tangent there.
Look,
Yeah.
I'll go down a rabbit hole in a heartbeat.
Yeah. But with insurance, do you see, are you expanding anywhere? Or, what's the future look like for Judson Vaughan Insurance?
I don't know 100% that answer. I am very happy. I don't see myself. So one thing that I like about Alpha is that I believe in the product and I believe in the results that come from the product.
Yeah.
So I've been on the other side of almost every claim. Thank God I have not had a life claim on myself, but excuse me. But I have had an auto claim and I've had a homeowner's claim, and I like the way that we do business.
Yeah.
And so as long as I'm selling insurance, I don't see myself swapping brands,
No. I meant
but
like, do you have any goals you're trying to accomplish in 24?
I
The next three?
do.
Yeah,
Well, yes,
yeah.
yes.
So that's probably a better question to ask.
Okay,
So
so
where are you going with Alpha? How about that? Yeah.
well, I'm trying my best to. I'm trying to do some different marketing ideas this year. Some different
Well, I like your insurance is easy with Judson. I've
insurance
seen
is
some of your
easy with
stuff on
Judson.
social media, like the videos and things like that. It looks really, really good.
Thank
So
you.
yeah,
I'm very proud of them.
yeah,
I had the commercial like written down on my phone in my notes for like 2 years now.
yeah,
And so I just needed the right videographer. I needed I needed the right support,
yeah,
and I needed folks that said, "Look, this is not just a crazy idea. This is not just another wild idea, or this isn't a big deal."
yeah,
I wanted to take I wanted to take advice from other people in the room,
yeah.
and I never want to be the smartest person in the room,
No, no.
and
It's
so I surrounded myself with like-minded people that were, that believed in the message that I want to portray. That I really do believe that things are easier with me.
yeah,
Now, granted, does that raise my stress level just a little bit?
yeah,
But by profession, sometimes I feel like a defense attorney
yeah,
because I try to protect my clients. I try to make sure that they have everything that they need, and
yeah.
most of the time more than they need. From the aspect of being able to reach me, because being reachable is so important,
Yes.
and not just being a figurehead or whatever you want to call it. I want to make sure that if people need Judson, that they get Judson.
Yep.
You can delegate all sorts of stuff, and thankfully we have we have the structure in place that I don't have to do everything,
Yeah.
but I know how to do almost everything.
Yeah. That's always an important thing in business. Like you don't have to do everything, but you better be able to do it if you
Yes.
have to.
Look, I
Right?
want to
Yeah.
make sure that if something happens and I have to hold the fort down by myself, I can do it.
Yeah.
Now, it might send my blood pressure through the roof,
Yeah.
but at least for a couple hours, I could do it if I had to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So where are you going? Like what so was this the rebranding was one of your
it's
goals?
kind of a
Yeah.
rebranding, but
Yeah.
I just want to, it's harder to sell insurance today than it was yesterday.
Why?
Well, I think the biggest issue is that in the world of everything digital that we're seeing, there are new insurance companies that seem to pop up all over the place. And most people do not spend the time to do research on them to see, okay, well, what's their accreditation rating, or what is their, what's the structure behind their organization? Do they have offices in Alabama, or is this just
Yeah.
something that's headquartered out in Kansas and they're now writing in a handful of counties?
Yeah.
And so, because it's great and wonderful to save money on something, but if they can't afford to pay the claim,
Yeah.
and so, I follow all this different insurance stuff on social media, but insurance companies across the country are pulling out of different areas trying to be more profitable. And it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Insurance is about analyzing the risk and realizing if it's one you want to take or not. And because you qualify for you might be the perfect client on one side of the page, but if you've got 10 claims in the past 5 years, you're probably not a risk that most people are going to take.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there's a ton of insurance companies out there, but you bought a Red Bull, you could probably buy a cheaper energy drink.
Yeah.
But I believe that qualities always cost more.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes I save folks money. I literally saved a man money this morning, a very good amount of money, but it's not just about the bottom line.
Yeah. There's a lot of agents that I talk to have said something similar, right? It's much tougher to sell real estate. It's much tougher. And a lot of it, the noise is like, well, everyone's undercutting, everyone's charging cheaper and all of that stuff. And I'm like, yes. I said, but if you'll notice, the ones that are truly succeeding are the ones that are providing more value and being clear and better at conveying that value.
Painting
right?
the picture.
Yeah, you have to be able to paint the picture, right? Because if Judson, if I told you if you gave me $5 in return, I'd give you $10, you'd do the deal, right?
Probably.
And you do it tomorrow,
I
and
would.
the next day, and the next day, right? So if I charge you X amount to sell your house and I'm going to net you more, you do that deal. That's the conversation to have, right? Not how cheap can I be comparative to others. It's like, if you want the value, I'm your guy. If not, that's okay too, but most of, going back to the value thing. Like,
If you're solely concerned with price, I normally
Yeah.
tell folks I'm probably not
Yeah.
your. If that's the only thing you're worried about. Now, when you bring that up, some folks go, "Well, that's not all I'm worried about," and then we
yeah.
extend the conversation.
I think where I was going, I got a little sidetracked. Where I was going with it is even though it's tougher, the cost of, I heard a quote the other day, the cost of excellence has never been cheaper, right? Because if you do a good job and you do show up, you're the top 20%. If you just show up when you say you're going to show up, if you call your client back when
That's
you
right.
say you're going to call your client back, you're already leading the pack. Everyone fights it with other ways instead of value,
on.
quality, experience, all the other things that people value. Everyone's so hung up on the price, thinking that's immediately where you have to go to, or ease of service on internet ads or whatever it is. Like, there's so many other ways that people value, and then, because most of your business comes with referral-based business, right? So all you have to do is build up a group of cheerleaders, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's easy, man.
I see all mine every Thursday at 11:30.
That's it. So, but yeah, so outside the rebranding, where else do you want to grow your clientele some?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Growth is essential.
Yeah.
But another thing that people sometimes forget about is retention. And and so not only am I trying to grow every single month, not just 1 month out of the 12, I'm trying to produce growth every single month.
Yeah.
But at the same time, make sure nothing's leaving the back door. Make sure that my clients that are existing clients and policyholders have everything they need. Because my time is not just spent on writing new business. I would say 25% of the day is spent on actually writing stuff. It's the rest of that day that's maintaining everything, making sure that we've called everyone back. If you've asked any questions, because folks will call, text, send you on Instagram, Facebook, literally every medium that you're on, they respond to you, which is fine and your own fault, really, because I put it out there.
Yeah.
So, but it does make it more challenging sometimes to make sure that you
want to take care of the people that got you there.
You absolutely do.
It's a relationship.
Dance with the one that brought you, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Because a lot of people forget to do that. They're always constantly going after that new business, and even most business owners will tell you the most expensive business you can do is new business. You know what I'm saying? So, like, why are we focused on that so much? Just take care and be the best you can with what you have, and they'll build it for you. So, yeah, that's the power of the brand and referrals and everything else. So
I like the power of the brand because I think one thing that I try to do is whatever I put out on Facebook or whatever on Instagram or whatever, rebranding to make people not worry about insurance is a big worry to a lot of people.
That's
especially if you've got a history of claims or you have a teenage driver that has a lead foot like I do.
I don't know anybody that's excited about insurance.
Not one person.
I'm just like, gosh, I got to get insurance on
I know.
this, Yeah.
So that's why I try to be so uplifting.
Yeah.
So you want to call me back.
I like
and
it.
we'll talk about everything else and we'll talk a little bit about insurance.
Yeah.
But just taking care of the brand is also important because as we're trying to expand the brand, and by the brand I mean me, making sure that I try my best to write quality business. Yeah. I want to make sure that if I'm going to put my name on it, that it's going to be done right. Number one, but it's whatever it meets your needs and the company's needs.
Yeah.
And so in finding that perfect recipe. Because just because you should qualify for a policy, doesn't necessarily mean that you deserve one based on your current set of affairs or based on the current state of the house.
Yeah.
Which is a big one because no one wants to be told that their house doesn't look great.
Yeah.
Like
No,
one loves for me to tell you, look, if we really need to fix that rotten fascia board.
Yeah.
Or that storage building back there is one good blow of wind from coming to the ground. And then people just it's like you're belittling something that they own, and it's not my intention.
I know.
But but you have to bring light to all
Oh
these
yeah,
things.
you walk in and the walls are painted Pepto-Bismol
Yes.
pink, and they're like, "Isn't it beautiful?" And I was like, "Ooh," and yeah, in someone's
In
eyes,
the right light.
yeah, yeah.
In Stevie Wonder's eyes, maybe. But,
Yeah, I had this one listing I went to, and they called me up like, "Hey, we're moving," so I went out there, and I walked in, and immediately, just very strong odor of cat, cat
I'm
urine
not a
and things
cat
like
person
that.
either.
And I said, "Yeah," and she goes, "Well, I do have some cats," and I was like, "Yeah, I can,"
A
She
slew
goes,
of them.
but she goes, you can't even smell them, and I'm like, no, and it just kept getting worse and worse, and like
Not at
everywhere I
all.
look, there's cat figurines on the walls. The shower curtain was one big cat, and then the back room, I'm not exaggerating, there was over 30 cats back there. And
That
she
gives
goes,
me anxiety.
and she goes, people come over and they tell me they don't even know I have cats. I'm like, I don't know how. I smelled it in the driveway. How do I even navigate this conversation?
Mildred had the crazy cat lady from the neighborhood over. That's
Yes.
who's been coming over.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Speaking of brand and stuff like that, what does brand mean to you?
I mean, perception's everything.
Perception, okay, but like what else? Yeah,
So, and I say perception not to say that I'm trying to pull a magic trick,
Yeah.
that I'm offering something that I'm not.
yeah,
But first impressions are very important, and so I try to put my best foot forward
Yeah.
and make sure that I'm presenting everything that I try to in a good light.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those. I don't. I hate negative energy.
yeah,
And I hate those people that just, and hate's a strong word, so maybe I shouldn't use hate, but I really don't like those that want to complain about everything.
Yeah.
Because I also don't like to hear people complain about problems that they don't want to fix,
yes, yeah, yeah,
because I don't have time for that.
yeah,
Because I have thousands of people that need something
yeah,
that actually want it to be fixed. So I have to spend my time working on those that want help.
yeah,
And not every problem some of the problems that people call me about, I can't fix, by trade or whatever, by happenstance. I can't fix everything.
So like brand to you, if I'm hearing you right, is
I got off on a tangent
yeah,
there.
it's fine. Yeah, but brand for you, if I'm hearing you
I'll
right,
do it real easy.
is that what your qualities, your core values, trying to convey that in a direct way, right?
Yes, trying to convey that in a sense that comes across as, real, like,
Yeah.
and I want to make sure, in a perfect world, every time you saw an Alpha logo, I would like for you to think of Judson, and I would like for you to think, oh, well, I need to,
Yeah.
if I think Alpha, I think Judson,
Yeah.
because I always want to be an asset, not a liability.
Sure.
And so bringing as much worth as I can to my name.
Yeah.
And I am not perfect, far from it, and fail on an everyday basis. But I try my best, professionally, especially. I want folks to know that you can trust me with more than just insuring your Camry and your truck outside.
Yeah.
Oh,
when people trust you too, that you recommend people and they go to them because you told them to, right? I mean that's the power of trust.
Then it becomes so even more important because not only is my name on the line, yours is too.
Exactly. Yeah. But I was talking to a guy. It's been a couple months ago, and one of the things he told me was that brand and reputation go hand in hand, right? And that was kind of all that was said. And it made me think about it a while. And like to me, reputation is not what people see, but what they say about you behind closed doors, right? That's true reputation, And so like with branding and things like that, I think a lot of like.
Do we have to even listen to the bad stuff, or can we just pretend that they don't say all the bad stuff?
Yeah, for sure. But like, well, I think that goes with the brand is like everything you do is your part of your brand, and people don't realize that. Like your brand is how you carry yourself, how you talk to people, how you engage with people. Like in every aspect of what you do, if you are, Judson Vaughan Realtor, everything you do is a part of your brand.
And in today's world, we have eyes on us all the time.
Exactly. You don't get away with anything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Someone said, "Why don't you want to wrap your car in something?" I was like, "Well, it might not be the best idea." Look, I don't claim to be the world's best driver. Like it's
I would
awful
be known
to
for
say.
selling houses, not for not turning my turn signal on.
Absolutely.
You getting mad at me,
Like
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you going to like so brand, building your clientele, any other philanthropy or anything like that you want to do?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I always seem to have a little project going on,
Yeah.
and whether or not that's a good or a healthy thing, I don't know.
Gotta stay busy, man. Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a couple of different ways to serve
Yeah.
in different places. Thankfully we live in Deatsville and live in Millbrook and have a lot of different opportunities.
Yeah.
And so we'll see where the year takes us. I'm excited about it though.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I've probably been more as crazy busy as 2024 has been, and it's been nuts.
yeah.
I probably feel better about this year than I have in the past couple, which is very strange because, you know, quotas are always going up and things are always getting a little bit,
Yeah.
more uneasy. And the world's getting, the world changes by the day.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm excited.
Why do you think this year is different from the years past?
I have no idea. If you
Well,
want me to be honest.
Yeah, well, so this year feels really good for First Call and like all the agents and like where we started off
It's
the
just
year.
a gut feeling.
No, for me, it's not. And I think what I've attributed, because I'm a guy, so I'm naturally logical, analytical, but I'm probably more of that to a fault, right? And I started really thinking about it. It's like, what in the world have we done different, And I think it was because we started stacking intention in Q3 and Q4 of last year.
That's,
You know what I'm saying?
I'm
Like,
tracking.
yeah, and so like whatever you're experiencing now, especially like with any sales journey you're on, you can always attribute what you're experiencing now, whether good or bad, to what you did 3 to 6 months ago.
That's exactly right.
And so
That little conversation that you had 6 or 8 months ago in line at some store, or you ran into him at a ball game.
Yeah, but we, like I was talking to the agents and things like that, and I was like Q3, Q4, like one of the biggest things is our biggest problem is affordable homes, right, and interest rates. Just a kind of all of that certain things. So what we need to do right now is try to build inventory for those people in the affordable housing. So and also figuring out how you can help those sellers, right? Because the sellers want to move, and we were just super, super intentional about how and why what we were doing. And I think that attributes to what we're experiencing so far in Q1. So, and I
You're
think that's
exactly right, though.
And I think that's what makes me, excited for this year, is because we have such a good track record so far, and like the culture of the company is so much stronger. And I think if you look at your business and like what you're experiencing, you can probably attribute it to something similar.
Now that we're thinking, now that I'm actively thinking about it,
it's like, what did I do in Q3, Q4, even Q2 of last year to like set me up for this feeling of why I feel so confident? Because confidence only comes from the past wins, right? Yeah, from experience of past wins. So you've won somewhere.
It does.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be so happy to see the future.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. And, sometimes it's just nice to sit down and hear somebody else say it, and then it just makes you realize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I probably feel more confident in my abilities professionally.
Yeah.
I know my products.
Yeah.
I'll put that up against anyone that I work with.
Yeah.
I know my products, and I know our claims staff, and I know our underwriting staff. I know I've been there long enough to kind of understand which way the wind blows.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, with that said, as long as and today I can 100% say it, I believe that Alpha Insurance is the best insurance in the state of Alabama.
Yeah.
And until that changes, I don't foresee, altering anything just yet. But one thing I think you have to learn in the sales world is that not every sale happens overnight. And so I used to let that no just completely rain on my parade.
Yeah. Yeah.
But listening to it as a not today, changing it from a no to maybe just not today in my mind. So the door is not closed on this one. And some of those that you don't close the door on, you follow up with, or something in life brings them back to you.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like my first real estate coach I had, one of the things was, he's like, what you will learn is that the first contact means nothing. It's the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. And he said, it's the follow-up is what matters, because what you're doing is, in my opinion, what you're doing is that it's easy to have a good first impression of a good initial contact with your brand of like, hey, I'm here to help, I'm a good guy, what have you, right?
Yep.
But if you do it the second time, well, they feel like, well, maybe he is telling the truth. The third time, wow, this guy doesn't quit. Fourth time, like, I think he actually cares about me.
Right.
Fourth and fifth, you know what I'm saying?
And
Like,
maybe not bring up asking for money every time we talk.
no, yeah, but like, just checking in, seeing if there's anything I can do to help.
Absolutely.
Like you come at it from that
Makes you
servant's.
more than transactional.
Exactly. You come in, you show up like, how can I help? And try to figure out a way that you can help, and then provide value. And it's always that third or fourth follow up. That's when the conversion's made.
And it's weird because, small things like saving, like once I have someone that's a client, I go ahead and save your number in my phone,
Yeah.
just so whenever you call, let's just say you're calling about something bad. I might, well, hey, Miss Barbara,
Yeah.
and small stuff like that,
Yeah.
that stops them from having to, so-and-so's not here. Can you hold for so-and-so, or go through a whole prompt for you to have to get to me? Well,
Yeah.
I've taken all that out.
Yeah.
And so sometimes just that voice
Yeah.
of a real live person.
Yeah. Calling you by the name. And like it means something because, I can't tell you like how many people in my world that like, other agents and things like that, it's always, this is so-and-so. It's like, after 3 years, you haven't saved my number?
Right.
3 years, we've had 4 deals together.
Right.
Like you couldn't have saved my number between any of those, or like it makes But versus it's like, hey man, what's going on, or hey Lyle, what's going on? That's like, oh, that's my guy.
That's
It makes me
exactly
feel
right.
good. It's like it's the small things.
And then to pick up, they might remember something. I have so many clients of mine that will find out that I'm either going through something or maybe have a sick family member, or they'll send me messages to say they're praying for me, or they're thinking about me, and that means a lot because they're not contractually obligated to continue anything.
It's funny you bring that up because that has happened to me more and more and more over the years, and it's like, wow. Like they actually care about me.
Absolutely.
Like I've been trying to prove to them that I care about them, but like now it's like I get cards in the mail.
And without being prompted, they do it.
They just do it because they're like, and that's the means the most.
It just makes me smile, and it makes those bad days not as bad.
It makes it, and it also, it's like while you're doing it and you're going through the grind of like trying to make everybody feel important, it's worth it, right? Like seeing just that little glimpse of like, oh, okay, I am making a small impact.
Look, the first life insurance check the life claim check, first one I ever delivered, and that's one thing that I really, really like about Alpha is that I have the opportunity to take that check. And I can take it straight to the grieving widow or the grieving spouse or the whatever, case it is. And, more times than not, I start crying with them.
Yeah.
And because in that moment, it doesn't matter what type of life insurance policy it was. No one ever asked, was this a term policy or a whole life policy? All they do is look at that check and they start to cry. Because at some point in time, whether it was 30 years ago or 40 years ago or 20 years ago, someone in their family decided to put back enough money a month that in this moment, things aren't as bad as they could be.
Yeah.
And you leave that house feeling a little bit taller.
Yeah.
And it's strange to say that. I like to wear boots because they make me taller, but you feel a little bit taller because you know that whether it was you or the agent before you or whomever was the one that initiated that policy, that it worked.
Yeah.
It's not some pie in the sky thing that they're never going to see. You actually get to see someone that needs this.
Yeah.
And they might not even understand the need at that time because you're working on adrenaline at that point in time. And until it really sets in, you don't know the magnitude of this check that you may or may not even know was coming. That's the coolest part is when someone does not know.
I was about to say, I'm sure there's a lot of times I didn't even know that existed.
Or when you pick up a phone and it's a client, or it's not a client, it's someone calling to ask if so-and-so had any life insurance because they knew that they had Alpha insurance for their auto or their home or a farm. And so, but it's never fun to have to say that they don't. But it's very comforting to be able to say, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir. And we can't give out, just random information, but, just to be able to.
Yeah, well, it makes you, it's You've experienced what you have been trying to paint the picture of.
Yes.
You've experienced the picture you painted as far as in the aspect of like, there could be a time in the future where this could happen, and this makes it just a little better. You've experienced that little bit better part. That's why you walked out of there taller. And so next conversation you have, you can know for certainty that you're not selling a bad quality
Absolutely.
product. You can say, this is something that I believe in.
I'm not selling an aftermarket anything.
No,
I'm selling you something brand new that's never been out of the box,
Yeah.
and it won't come out of that box until you need it to.
Yeah.
And then when you need it, pending you keep up your end of the bargain, because we're going to keep up ours.
Yeah.
But as long as you make payments on this thing, you can sleep a little bit easier at night.
Yeah.
And sometimes that lands. Most of the time it does.
Yeah.
Because if I used to say when I first started, if I was sitting at a husband and wife, let's just say if Summer was sitting over here, I'd say, okay, Lyle, or I'll just talk to Summer first. Okay, Summer, something happened to Lyle. He is gone. His funeral's next week. How are you going to keep the lights on? And then the first thing that spouse does is normally look at you, and then I say, no, he's not here anymore.
Yeah.
So you look at me because there's nobody else here. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And then normally they either start laughing or they say, well, I don't know. And I'm saying, well, it's a good thing we're talking.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if we and then more times than not, you might make it to the end of a needs analysis and somebody will be like, I can't afford X amount of insurance. Well, great and wonderful. Well, the best way to eat an elephant is piece by piece.
Oh, yeah.
So let's go ahead and as much as you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really what insurance is in general, right? It's just, for the times that those unexpected tragedies or events that happen in life that most of the time statistically will happen, just it's not a matter of if, it's when.
That's right.
It's
It's like a teenage driver. I always tell folks, look, I know you want to jack the deductible up on a teenage driver just so you can, cut back on those monthly premiums, but it's normally a matter of if not when they have an accident, So you might not want that $1,000 deductible on there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, man, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Before we go, though, I've got a couple questions for you. What's your favorite book, man?
I don't read.
You don't read?
I don't read.
Podcast, Audible, anything like that?
Awful. No, I listen to the radio all the time.
Okay.
I need
What's your
to
favorite
get in.
radio station? Sorry.
Probably 98.9. I'm a country.
okay.
And I don't even.
Little boot scooting boogie on
Yeah,
over here?
I love Brooks and Dunn. Love Brooks and Dunn. So anything by Brooks and Dunn is
All
fine.
right.
But I'm a 90s country buff,
Okay.
and so that's kind of
The best country.
the best country.
Yeah, yeah, back when things were great. So, if you could have dinner with anyone past, present, or future, who would it be?
Past, present, or future. I think having dinner with JFK would have been really cool.
Why?
Well, I think, it's amazing if you go back and look at history and just see all the different parts that were involved in JFK's death and then the things that he was trying to accomplish. What if he would have had one more decade?
Yeah.
What if he was able to truly follow through with everything that he ran on?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think JFK would be tons of fun. They're so...
Well, yeah. JFK is a good answer. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. What's your favorite food?
Medium rare steak is really hard to beat.
Okay. All right. So 90s country and steak. Like I can see where it's going.
Yeah, it's a back porch heaven.
Yeah. No.
I'm
kidding.
easy to please the older I get.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got how you did it, how you got into insurance and all of that. But what's your why and how has it changed from when you started to where it is now?
When I started, Katie and I had been married for 2 years. And I had not been at Alpha 6 months before we found out that she was pregnant with Carter. And so I don't know that there is a better motivator than when you come home and you get to pick up your kids or you get to talk to them about their day, because whatever's wrong with your day in that moment takes a back seat.
Yeah.
And their problems are obviously different than mine. Lucy might get mad at one girl that didn't play with her on the playground that day. Well, in that moment, that is the biggest thing she has going on. And I try my best to do a good job of putting my problems on hold and listening to them.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what I have learned from my kids when you just listen to them, because sometimes you wonder, where do they pick up these stuff? Well, you hear this payback for how we acted.
Yeah, yeah,
But Carter and Lucy and Katie they are my why and
yeah.
my family. I think there's a country song called Bigger Houses that I love, because it talks about, you can make all the money in the world and you can live in these beautiful big houses and take these extravagant trips, but if you're not happy at home, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
And so I think your 30s are about learning to be content, and not in a dangerous way, but learning that, you don't have to have that "is this enough" mindset every day,
Yeah.
and to learn to live in the moment and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you hear all the time the days are
Maybe
long, but
not
the years are
content.
short.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
content's a terrible
But
word.
present.
Present is a much better
Present,
word.
because in your 20s you're so focused on I'm going to be 31 in a month, but like I ain't been on the earth very
You poor
long.
kid.
Yeah, I
You
know.
poor
Yeah.
kid.
But
You'll survive.
I can relate, that just being in the moment wherever you're at, like that's super important. I do vision boards every year, and I can relate that a lot. And like for the past 2 years running, it's presence, like being present. Not worried about what happened, not worrying about what if or will happen.
Because hindsight's 20/20, and if we could
Yeah.
solve every problem that was in the past, when would we have time to do our real jobs?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Someone's got to pay the bills.
Yeah, I like it though. Well, Judson, thanks for coming on, man. I've enjoyed
Had a
it.
great time. Let's do it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, for sure.